Thank you, Congress, for that warm welcome. What a joy it is to be back here in Brighton and to be back here with the TUC. Thank you to Mark and to Paul and to the whole team. And thank you to every single trade union rep in our country who gives up their time to ensure that workers have respect and a voice at work. I never forget the role the trade unions played in creating the Labour Party and sustaining it through triumph and adversity. And I never forget the role that trade unions have played in winning change for working people in the last 100 years, not least under Labour governments. In the department that I am proud to lead, I retrieved a bust of Ernie Bevan, one of the great trade unionists of the last century, and restored it to pride of place. It was during the Second World War that Ernie served as Minister of Labour and National Service. And in our country's darkest hour, it was the trade union movement that stepped up, that provided so many of the men and women who stepped forward to lead the change that we needed. When I took on this role, I was clear that I wanted to draw on the wisdom of the unions. And that's why I set up the Improving Education Together initiative. Union expertise, valued, not ignored. The voice of the workforce, valued, not ignored. And thank you to everyone who was fed into this initiative. Together, we are improving education. And Congress, today I want to tell you why that matters. I want to tell you two stories, one about my past and another about this country's future. My roots run deep in our working class communities, the working people of this country, the joiners, the steel workers, the cleaners, the shipbuilders, the carers, all of our public servants. Congress, I grew up on a street of council houses in Washington in the northeast, just me and my mum. And back when I was young, a man turned up at the front door with a baseball bat. A few weeks earlier, we'd been burgled, and my mum had reported it to the police. Now, the man had come back to scare her into silence. We clearly didn't know my mum very well. Because even at 9 years old, I could have told him that he was wasting his time. She stood her ground, he went to prison. Congress, from my mum, I learned about strength, not the kind that preys on the weak. No, I learned the kind that stands up to adversity. The strength to do what's right, even when it will be easier to crumble. That street of ours had challenges, yes, of course. But there was kindness, there was compassion, so much of it. There was our neighbour who knew that we were struggling one winter and posted an envelope through the letterbox marked for Bridget's code. And I never forget that kindness. There were my grandparents too, who moved here to this country from Ireland, a happy presence in my childhood. It's from my granddad that I get my love of reading and learning, from the days when he would bounce me on my knee, book in hand. He fought on the front line for our country in the Second World War. Then was in the vanguard of the new nurses helping to build the new National Health Service under a Labour government. And so, Congress, when people ask me where my values come from, I point to my mum, to my grandparents, to my neighbours, to my community. And I know that all of you, right across our movement, in your own lives, will have those figures who have inspired and motivated you. These values that underpin our working class communities, that show why we must return this country to the service of working people. To deliver our plan for change, to build the Britain we all want to see, strong and fearless, yet kind and compassionate. A modern Britain, head held high in the world, where opportunity is open to all, where the contribution of working people is rewarded, where no one need live only to work, but where everyone can work to live. That is the future that I want for our young people today. But Congress, that journey won't be easy. I'd like you to think of two siblings today, an older brother and his baby sister, growing up on that same street that I did. The brother will cast his ballot for the first time at the next general election. He grew up under the last Tory government, born too late for the Child Trust Fund, born when Sure Start centres that had once been so many had become so few. Born when the nursery place that he and his family needed had slipped cruelly out of reach. And now, what opportunities are open to him? Does he have enough money in his pocket to enjoy the simple things in life? To buy a new jacket, a ticket to the match, a holiday with his friends? Does he see a route to a good career, a house and a family? Does he believe in his bones that if he works hard, as his parents have told him, he can get on in life? Or does he believe that for young people like him, that dream is dying? Because today, there are people in our country that want that dream to fail. They come along with their simple slogans in answer to complex problems. They come happy to scapegoat, to talk of traitors, peddling their narrative of betrayal, seeking to divide us. I can talk about the dangers we face and the need for unity, but it's not enough. It's not nearly enough. The government, just as this movement, must show, not tell. And it must sow real hope and opportunity for all of our young people. Congress, the moral mission of this government must be to build the country that that young man deserves, so that his life is lit up with choice and freedom, in control of his own destiny. His little sister is just a baby, but the fight to give her every opportunity in life must begin now. By the time she reaches school, her first chapters will already have been written. And that's why this Labour government is investing £500 million to roll out 1,000 Best Start family hubs this Parliament, to give her and her friends the best start in life, the best of Sure Start's history reimagined for our future, bringing together all of the information and support her parents need, putting her on the path to success at school even in her earliest days. And last week, our childcare revolution reached new heights. Her parents can now access 30 hours of government-funded childcare every week, right from the end of parental leave up to her first day at school, a massive moment in our plan for change. And we'll reach over 500,000 families this term, helped by our school-based nurseries and providers across the country. £7,500 a year back into parents' pockets. And freedom as well to work the hours they want. The cost of childcare no longer pricing parents out of their dream job, a higher salary or a better life. And when that little girl arrives at primary school, there's a new free breakfast club ready to welcome her. Working mums and dads tell me how much that means. That extra £450 back in their pockets, together with the free childcare, up to almost £8,000 a year. And that's not just a number on a page. It's about not feeling sick with worry if your washing machine packs up. It's not making do with cold showers if your boiler breaks. It's about being able to say yes to an ice cream in the park, a trip to the beach, or an afternoon at the cinema. But our Breakfast Clubs Congress, they go further. They build the belief that children belong in school. And that matters perhaps now more than ever. There are some families in this country, some communities even, where that faith is fading. Young people unable to even imagine a promising future, let alone grasp it. School didn't work for their parents. Why should it work for them? Congress, our schools have come so far, driven forward by our amazing school workforce. But there are still groups of children in our society for whom school just isn't working. Like children with special educational needs and disabilities. More likely to be suspended, less likely to do well in English and maths. It's frankly unacceptable, and it is a similar story for our working class children too. Lower attainment, lower life chances. But I refuse to lower my expectations. Congress, I'll tell you why I'm so passionate about our schools. Because schools, and often our schools alone, are the pathway to opportunity for working class kids. And I know it because I lived it. I know what it takes to go from a tough street of council houses into the cabinet. Great schools, fantastic teachers, a strong sense of community. And I want to thank from the bottom of my heart every single person right across our country who works in our schools. Our support staff, our teachers, our school meals workers, leaders, cleaners, caretakers, every one of you, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. The success of our children depends on so much more. Alongside everything you do, I know there is much to achieve. I had a family steeped in the proud working class tradition of learning, of self-improvement. The same tradition that saw miners' halls in my community, with libraries stocked with books, journals and newspapers. The same tradition that sees banners lifted every year at the big meeting in Durham, proclaiming the universal, immortal truth that knowledge is power. The same tradition that sees Union Learn colleagues fight for the learning of your members. Now, Congress, I was lucky. I know I was. But life should not come down to luck. I think of that young man today from my community, growing up in Britain today. Where is the proof that education is the route to prosperity for him, when he sees just 1 in 5 children like him getting a strong pass in English and maths at GCSE? And I tell you this, Congress, not just as Education Secretary, but on behalf of this government as a whole. Because this isn't just a mark of the health of our schools, but the health of our society. When we deny our working class kids the opportunity their talent demands, we deny the country the chance of a brighter future. Wages lower, work less secure, growth on the floor. And that breeds resentment, Congress. Dark clouds hanging over our towns and cities. So when I say that I'm determined to build a school system that works for every child, that delivers excellence and opportunity for every child, I mean it. The Chancellor means it. The Prime Minister means it. And we'll set out the change we will deliver through our new Schools White Paper. But I can tell you now, Congress, that this government will drive high and rising standards in every school in this country. No compromise, no exception, strong on standards for our working class kids. That means strong accountability and strong support for our schools. Over 200 of the schools which need that support the most, are now getting it through our new Regional Improvement or RISE teams. And today I announce that that number will almost double. Almost 100,000 more pupils across the country will benefit. Expert support from the best in our school system. Just as we are putting our economy back in the service of working people, we are putting our schools back in the service of working people. And these two are indivisible. A good education is the only way that working people can get the best from our economy. And that goes beyond schools, especially for that young man. He's left the classroom behind. He's not sure what next. But he doesn't want to be sitting on mum and dad's sofa come September. He wants to get on, but without the right support, he could so easily slip into stagnation. Retreating into a parallel life, days and nights spent alone in his bedroom, accessing all manner of material online, vulnerable to the toxic messages he finds there. As the months pass, hope disappears and anger seeps into the gaps. That's how our social fabric begins to fray. But it doesn't have to be that way. Our task is to help that young man claim a stake in our society. He needs top quality choices, a route into university or a great apprenticeship, like the apprentices I met at British Steel in Scunthorpe last month, who wouldn't have had that chance were it not for this Labour government stepping in and taking action to secure its future. And I am delighted that British Steel are now taking on their first apprentices in 3 years. For our man, an apprenticeship is the chance to learn a trade, to earn the respect of his friends, to feel a part of something. That's why we're revitalising apprenticeships for young people in this country, widening access, adding flexibility, more people earning and learning, adding to their prosperity and our country's growth. Because that's the win-win of investing in skills. It backs working people and it drives our economy forward. Because you know that if we don't back you, then houses aren't built, children aren't taught, patients miss out, our country doesn't get the change it needs. The change to make work pay. That is not the work of one single department, but of the entire government. Investing not just in top skills for working people, but in good jobs for working people. Not just here and there, but in every town and in every city in our country. And routes into those good jobs through a revitalised skills system, working as one with our industrial strategy. That's why we're developing a comprehensive plan for post-16 education and skills. For a new future of skills, a new future of work, clear and coherent support when and where it is needed. Our movement has always supported training and retraining in times of change. Working people have always been ready to hold up to their end of the deal. Now, government must hold up to ours and cement good, secure jobs in legislation through the Employment Rights Bill. Proof of the transformative change of which our movement is capable. Fair pay for a fair day's work. No more exploitative zero-hours contracts. No more flexibility for one side but not the other. Instead, a baseline of security for workers. Day one rights, sick pay, family rights, bereavement leave, strong collective rights that give workers a stronger collective voice fit for the modern world. That is our promise, that if people work for this country will work for them. And we're leading from the front in our schools, with the school support staff negotiating body. At long last, once more, a direct voice for our fantastic school support staff. Our caretakers, our catering staff, our teaching assistants, the people that bind our school communities together. And make no mistake, they will be properly recognised and rewarded for the vital work they do. That's the progress this country needs. And for adult social care workers too. It can be a hard job, long hours, tough terms. But Congress, show me a job with more value and show me a workforce with more heart, overlooked until now. And that's why the Employment Rights Bill will also deliver an historic fair pay agreement in social care. But Congress, what about that young man's baby sister? What kind of Britain are we building for her and for little girls everywhere? As Minister for Women and Equalities, I am deeply proud of the progress this government has already made. Hard won, hand in hand with women's groups and trade unions. That little girl deserves to grow up in a Britain where she gets every opportunity that her brother does. So Congress, we're acting. With our plan to make work pay, we'll make gender pay gap action plans mandatory. It's not enough just for employers to know about the gender pay gap, we're making them tackle it. And for disabled and ethnic minority workers too, rooting out pay discrimination wherever we find it. Going further, reviewing parental leave, strengthening protections against sexual harassment at work. And I'm delighted to say that for the first time, this government will commence the socio-economic duty so that people from backgrounds like mine, backgrounds like yours, are never forgotten. So that when public authorities make strategic decisions, they'll have to consider how they can ease the inequalities that still blight our communities. On women's rights, on workers' rights, on life chances, the choice we face is a simple one. Forward with Labour to shape the 2030s, or dragged back with Reform and Nigel Farage to the 1950s. Reform whose leader told women that maternity leave was lunacy, that maternity pay was excessive, that women coming back from maternity leave and earning life was simply a fact of life, and that those women were worth far less to their employers. For the good of our country, we choose to go forward, not back. And Congress, make no mistake, let there be no doubt. 1 year ago, we were elected to deliver this Employment Rights Bill, and Congress, that is what we will do. We will not accept any watering down by the Lords. Forward with the Employment Rights Bill in full. No ifs, no buts, forward. Let's change this country together. For that young man, for his baby sister, for working class communities across our country, £8 billion of investment in early years, free breakfast clubs, reaching almost 80,000 children in our most deprived communities, free school meals for 500,000 more children, higher standards in our schools, stronger rights for workers, better choices for parents and freedom for families, a new wave of opportunity. Congress, this is what real change looks like, the kind that both feeds off and fuels our belief in better. Building a cycle of hope, not hostility. And the chance to work with you, to deliver that change is the greatest privilege of my life. It's why the worst day in government is still better than the best day in opposition. It's why no matter how hard the challenges, no matter how tough the choices, what drives me forward every day is the brighter future our children and our country deserve. And we get there, Congress, through the politics not of fear and hatred, but of hope and justice. So I ask you to continue to work with us on the good days and the bad, to keep up the fight in our towns, in our cities, in all of our workplaces, to build a country of which we can all be proud. Together, we can restore opportunity and hope to working people and build a stronger Britain. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your speech, Bridget. And as you know, we are committed to working together to achieve more for working class communities and to take forward equality. Can I also add, on a personal level, I think I love your mum. Strong. Thank you. The Secretary of State has agreed to take questions. We will be taking questions in small groups. I invite Paul Nowak to introduce our first questions, Paul.
Okay, thanks, President. I'm going to ask Lynn Pollard from the GMB, Sahira Chowdhury, a Unison member, Maria Chandragani from UCU, she's the UCU President, Rachel Knight, an English teacher and an NSUWT member, and Marika Miles, who's a head teacher and a member of the executive of the National Association Head Teacher, to come forward. They're over there to ask their questions, and then the Secretary of State will respond once all the questions have been asked. So, Lynn, over to you.
Thank you. Stick with me, I'm severely dyslexic, so as a school convener, I have dealt with staff leaving because they feel undertrained, underpaid and unappreciated. We welcome Labour's pledge to value and recognise the professionalism of the school support workforce through the SSSMB. Will you commit to ensuring all support staff get the same fair pay, terms, conditions, so that every worker is and feels valued?
Unison welcomes your commitment to reinstating the SSSMB, but do you agree as part of that work it's essential that we have a consistent national approach to how school staff are paid and their jobs are evaluated, regardless of whatever type of school they work for?
Maria?
Bridget, thank you for the opportunity to ask a question on behalf of all UCU members. The Tories introduced a failed marketized model across education, in schools, further education, adult education, prison education, higher education. This has been disastrous. How and when do you intend to revise it? Maria Chandragani, UCU President.
Rachel?
Hello, Bridget. Rachel Knight. I'm an English teacher in Salford and an SUWT member. Teachers in academies, like workers in outsourced services, often lack guaranteed trade union recognition. Will you make union recognition a condition of all public funding and contracts so workers in every sector have a voice at work?
And then, finally in this section, Marika.
Hello. You indicated that you will set out a bold vision for the future of education in your forthcoming white paper, with the centrepiece of that being SEND reform. What reassurance can you give Congress, all the educators and support staff, all the parents and grandparents in this room, that the government's plans will properly take account of the views of and pressures on educators, command the confidence of the electorate, and not fold at the first cry of outrage from the right-wing press who so love to insult education professionals?
Thanks. Over to you, Bridget.
Thank you so much, and thank you for a range of questions on a number of topics. To begin with the school support staff negotiating body, I am so proud that we've moved so rapidly as a government to make that a reality and to start that process. And the reason we do it is for all of the reasons that you set out, about making sure that all of our support staff have a minimum standard and expectations around terms and conditions and pay. But alongside that, the reason I do it too is every school I visit in the country, every school leader I speak to, they say to me, were it not for the amazing teaching assistants, cleaners and catering staff, they couldn't do their job and they couldn't deliver for their children and their communities. It's why we will make sure it does cover all schools, and we will make sure there are clear expectations about what is necessary. Maria, in terms of the wider question you asked around higher education and other areas, in terms of our universities, I believe our universities are one of our country's greatest strengths, not just for young people moving away from home at 18, but often in communities like mine, the chance for adults to return to education, often later on in their lives, maybe after starting a family, and the chance to retrain. It's why what you will have seen from this Labour government is a different approach, an end to the culture wars in our universities and a focus on what we need to deliver for our students and for our staff. And in children's social care, I'm really proud of the work that we're already doing to make sure that private providers don't see excess profits as a result of vulnerable children. Vulnerable children, often who've been through the most traumatic experiences that no one could imagine, who haven't had a voice, who haven't had the support that they need for the longest time. And that's alongside the changes that we're bringing in to support foster carers and kinship carers too. But we are driving big reform in children's social care because I don't think it's right to leave it to the market, and I don't find it comfortable to see that excess profiteering at the expense of vulnerable children. In terms of collective bargaining and union recognition, the changes that we're bringing forward through the Employment Rights Bill will make that a lot easier. And on special educational needs and disabilities, I can absolutely give that reassurance, because there is no responsibility I take more seriously than to our children with SEND and to their families. I've heard so many stories from right across our country, from our workforce, from our parents, about how we were left behind a system that is failing children on so many levels. Everything that we will do to reform the system of support for children with SEND will be rooted in one principle, that is better life chances and better outcomes for children with SEND. And I'm making sure that I'm already spending lots of time talking to parents, talking to our workforce, to our trade unions, and also disabled rights groups to make sure we get this right. It is an immense responsibility, but it is the right thing to do. We cannot stand by as so many of our children do not get the support that they deserve.
Thanks, Bridget. We've now got a second group of questions. So we've got Heather Gillifan, who's an NHS worker and a Unite member, Nicola Hawkins, who's a member of the NEU, Julia Giorgio, who's the General Secretary at the NHBC Staff Association, Carla Jones-Charles, who's Director of Midwifery and an RCM member, and then finally, to round off our questions, Renata Birmingham, who's a USDOR rep at a large retailer. And they're going to ask questions ranging from AI in the workplace right through to the Employment Rights Bill. So, Heather, over to you first of all.
Thank you. Thank you, Bridget. We heard your announcement at the end there about the Employment Rights Bill, but we're still deeply alarmed that the Employment Rights Bill has been repeatedly watered down, with the House of Lords slashing key rights, loopholes in rights for zero-hours workers, and the failure to outlaw fire and rehire, made worse by the government's amendment allowing the widespread use of fire and rehire in local government and across the public sector. Will this government guarantee this Congress that it will implement the bill in full?
Nicola?
Nicola, National Education Union. Artificial intelligence will impact many sectors of the economy, but often the impact on workers in how AI is used in education is overlooked. Can the Secretary of State guarantee that unions will be full partners in discussing frameworks for both how and why AI is used and how workers' rights will be protected?
Thank you, Nicola. Julia?
Thank you, Bridget. I'm a proud trans woman. Given the exclusionary nature on the original EHRC draft guidance, reportedly repeated in the revision that is now on your desk, what will you do to ensure the safety, dignity and human rights of trans people and trans workers in particular are upheld?
Carla?
Thank you. As Minister for Women and Equalities, the female workforce is a backbone of our public services, including in maternity care. But female workers are systematically discriminated against with a lack of availability of flexible working, particularly in the NHS, and career stalling if they take maternity leave or carers leave. Will the Secretary of State agree that this misogyny in public services must be addressed and ended as a priority?
Thank you, Carla. And then finally, for our questions, Renata.
Thank you. Hello, Bridget. The government has made welcome progress on expanding childcare provision, but it remains very difficult for low-paid workers in sectors like retail and distribution to access affordable childcare. Will the government develop a longer-term plan to make childcare universally available to all families?
Thank you, Bridget, over to you.
Great, thank you very much for those questions. Heather, first of all, no ifs, no buts, we will implement the bill in full. This will be the biggest upgrade to workers' rights in a generation, and this Labour government will deliver it. Nicola, around AI, absolutely I can give you that assurance. I think there are amazing opportunities that come of the use of technology, particularly in how we can tailor learning for children and how we can free up teacher and support staff time to really do those human face-to-face interactions that you can't expect of any technology. If harnessed correctly, if done properly, I think there is enormous potential. But I do, of course, recognise the concerns that you express. It's why through improving education together, we will take this forward. We will work with our employers and our trade unions to get this right. We've also launched a call for evidence as a department to look more closely at this. But I agree this is a defining issue of our times, one that presents amazing opportunities, but where we have to make sure we get the balance right. Julia, around safety, dignity and human rights for trans workers, absolutely, now and always. Safety, dignity and respect is the cornerstone of our society. And trans people continue to enjoy the protection afforded through Labour's Equality Act to not face prejudice or discrimination or harassment. And this Labour government will introduce a draft bill to make sure that we deliver a full trans-inclusive ban on conversion practices. We will also equalise all existing strands of hate crime legislation to protect trans people. I can give that absolute assurance. Around flexible working, rights at work, childcare and much more besides, the two final questions. I am so proud of what we are achieving already in terms of expanding childcare, both in terms of the hours available to parents, but also through expanding school-based nurseries, often in some of our most deprived communities where families will struggle to access childcare. But I completely recognise the challenge about making sure that we have a simpler, more straightforward system for all parents. And through our recently published Best Start in Life strategy, that's what I've committed to doing. And I do recognise the additional challenges and barriers that staff will face, often shift workers in some of the sectors that you mentioned. But that also has to go hand in hand with better rights at work, which we will deliver through the Employment Rights Bill, but also more flexible working opportunities and rights from day one. Because we know it's often women who lose out when they aren't available. We know it's often women who give up their jobs when childcare isn't there, where they can't get the place. I'm so proud of what we've achieved so far. I've made early years and provision for working women my priority, but there is a lot to do and we'll do it together.
Thank you, Bridget. We look forward to continue to working with you. Thanks again for good.